Hello there all my lovely jewelry makers, I'm Christina of CSLdesigns, and in today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to make this heartbeat prong set cabochon ring. So it's definitely a statement piece, but if you want to learn how to make your own, then keep watching. So first of all, the wires that I'm using are regular round silver coated copper wire, and the first gauge here is a 0.8mm, which is our base wire. Then we need a 0.3mm for the weaving wire, and then of course we need our stone as well. So what I have here is a 12mm cushion cut glass cabochon. Has beautiful sparkling colours, but of course you can choose what you want to, and you can also use a different shape as well. So as for our tools, first of all we need to be able to cut our wire, so I have my flush cutters. Then I have some tweezers and nose pliers to manipulate the wire with. I've got my 6-step bail making pliers to help make some curves and shapes in different sizes. And finally a ring mandrel to help get the right size and shape. So as always, you can check out the description box below the video for the materials and any links that might be helpful. Otherwise, let's get our tools and materials ready and let's get started. Then we need to cut some lengths of wire, and first of all I have two lengths of the 0.8mm of about 30 centimeters each. Now the weaving wire I'm just going to leave attached to the reel so there's minimum wastage. So to begin with, we're going to make the ring band. So I'm grabbing one length of my base wires and also my weaving wire here, and I first of all want to attach this weaving wire to the base wire. So first of all we do want to start a little bit in, because the weave we're going to make we need to end up having across the middle of the base wires, and then just attach it by wrapping it around once like that, and straight away I want to bring in the other base wire, place that above the first one and just make the tails even, and then we're going to get straight into the weave. Now I'm doing the diagonal wire weave here. You can do a different wire weave with two base wires, that's up to you. I have a playlist of wire weaves, I'm going to link that down below. Otherwise for this one I'm going to then bring my weaving wire over the top of both of them and then come up between the two, push that down, and then wrap around the top one by itself and then down behind again. And that is basically one round of the weave. I'm just going to keep repeating this now, obviously except for adding in wire. So I'm just going to wrap around the bottom one by itself, then over the top of both of them, come up between the two, and then around the top one by itself and down behind again. And then we just keep doing that until we have the length that we need. So now I've got the length of my weave done here. Then I'm going to grab my ring mandrel, because we then need to shape this. So get it to the size that you want and then just shape it around all the way like that. And then we're going to have the two ends of the weave there meeting up. Now what I then just want to do is we need the two ends to meet, so that means I need to grab the two base wires, start with one side at a time, and right where the weave ends just bend them upwards, straight up away from the ring mandrel like that, and the same with the other ones in the opposite direction obviously. So when I bring them together now they can sit completely next to each other just like that. So now I want to fasten them together here, so we have the complete ring band, and I'm just going to use one of the ends. So I'm going to wrap around the side and then keep wrapping all the way around all four ends of wires, and literally just wrap around a few times here to make sure that it's sitting nice and close next to each other, and just keep wrapping a few times. And then you just want to finish it off by wrapping around a single base wire by itself. So just wrap around that a few times, and we can then go in and cut off the excess. So just one at a time, cut it off. So there's a short little tail left, and then use tweezers and nose pliers to push that in and just tuck it in between all the base wires there so it doesn't stick out and possibly catch on any skin. And then the same with the other length. So now I need to start making the prongs, and first of all, to be able to do that, I'm going to start separating out my wires here. So just bring them towards basically the corner that they're coming from. Bring them further out, kind of open them up. So we have something a bit like this. And then you can also bring in your stone to basically just measure that we're bringing them down to the same level all the way around. So I can see this one needs to go down a little bit more. Put the stone back in just to make sure it sits nicely. So we end up with the wires evenly separated out like this around the stone. So one on each side there. And then we need to start actually making the prongs. So I like to put my finger on the stone so it stays in place how it needs to end up sitting. Then I take my tweezer nose or flat nose, whatever you have, and I use the pliers themselves to help make sure that all my prongs get as even as possible. So I'm going to bring my pliers and I'm going to rest them against the stone and then grab onto the wire. You can then remove the stone while doing this, and then push this length of wire and go and push it towards the other side. So it's basically going over the ring band on this side here, and then you want to push it all the way so so it's coming right down next to itself like that. And then we basically need to tighten this up. So just like to grab onto it with my fingers, and then at the very tip, and then use the back of your pliers to gradually make it tighter and tighter until we end up with something like this. That's basically the finished prong, and that's the first one. So place the stone back in, and then we can just move our way around and then go to the next one, again using the stone itself. So I'm putting my pliers ready to grab onto that wire, but resting the pliers on the stone, and then grabbed onto the wire, and then I'm going to start bending this, and this is now going to get bent towards the one that we just did. So these two wires on one side are going to get bent towards each other, and the other two wires are going to get bent towards each other there as well. So you just want to go around and do that with all of them. And then I'm going to move on to the side here, so just one at a time, because we need these wires to be brought back up so we can also use them for the embellishment on the side. So again, just hold the stone down with your finger just to have an idea so we can see where we need to place our pliers. So I'm just going to have a look on the side, and I want to come down a bit but somewhat close to the top of the cabochon. So something like this, and then grab that wire and bring it back upwards again. So straight up like that, and then just do the same with the one on the other side, and that's now freed up from the one we just bent. So place your pliers, grab onto the wire where we want the bend to be, and then bring the wire back upwards to basically come and sit next to the other one. So this is what we end up with on this side, and then we can just flip it around, bring the stone back into place, and then just do the same with these wires as well. Then next I just want to secure these areas in place, because obviously these two are not fastened together, so they're still open and kind of wobbly. So to do that, I'm just going to get another length of my 0.3 mil, so the weaving wire. It doesn't really matter how long, just about 20 centimeters or so is what I'm working with. And I'm just going to first of all attach it to one of them. So just wrap it around a single one of them just a couple of times here like that, and then I just want to wrap around both of them just to basically fasten them together, make it a bit of a secure connection point, but making sure they stay lying flat next to each other. So wrap it around here and push these wraps all the way down. So the time has now come to add in the hearts on the sides here. So I'm just going to start on one side, and this is then where I'm going to bring in my 6-step bell making pliers, so I know what size I'm going to get my loops. And you can easily use round nose pliers. I just like working with these here. So just going to focus on this side first, and we're going to make the biggest hat first, also the one that's closest to the stone. So just slightly separate the wires a little bit, and then I'm going to kind of get my pliers as far down as I can, and then I'm using the third smallest for now. Can always adjust things, but it's also to help just get the kind of nice right curve and shape in place. And I'm just then rolling it downwards to basically first off make one side of the hat, and we can bring this wire further over, and then of course we can go to the other side and also start bringing that around, so we can really get a proper impression of what the hat is going to look like, and also try and make it as symmetrical as possible. So just bring this further down to match the other one, and also start to judge where I need to stop. Now to fully make the hat shape, we need to then bring our base wires here kind of over the ring band and have them crossing over there, and also that'll help us judge the size. I just want to bring them down a bit more because I don't want my hat sticking up too much from the stone. So I now made my hat on this side here. Now what I personally like to do is flip it around and then do the same thing on the other side, and I like to kind of flop back and forth depending what hat I'm working with, so I make sure they get as even as possible. So this one I'm going to aim to make the same size as the one I just did. So now I've done the first hat on both sides there, we need to move on to do the next hat, and for that I'm going to bring in my chain nose pliers or tweezer nose, and then what we need to do is get these two wires, again just working on one side at a time, we need to get them back up in position where we can then start the next hat. So that means I need to grab them close to where they cross over, so where the point of the hat is, and then just grabbing that specific wire that I'm holding onto with my pliers, and I'm bringing it upwards right against the pliers, and then just tighten it up a little bit, then grab the other one and do the same thing, so straight up, and that's going to then sit next to the other one. So basically what we're doing is, remember when we started doing the first hat to begin with, we brought the two wires straight up in the middle and went next to each other, and that is what we're doing again to get them in that same position to basically create the next hat in the same way. So I then have the two wires sitting there right next to each other. And then what I'm going to do before we start making the hat is the weaving wire that we attached the initial two wires together there to kind of fasten it more. I'm just going to bring through the wires and into position. And then I just want to wrap this wire around these two as well. Same principle, just to kind of fasten them together to help make it more of a complete hat. So just push that down right to the bottom and just wrap that around a couple of times. And then to make the hat, I'm going to do the exact same thing as we did with the first one. I'm grabbing my 6-step bell making pliers. Now this one I just want to make a little bit smaller than the first one though, but I'm using the pliers to help get the nice shape. So I'm just going to do one wire at a time and then bring it gradually down. And then as you can see, bringing it down further than that first hat, but then still bringing it over the ring band to the opposite direction. So get that into place, and then of course just do the same with the other side as well. And then we made the second hat on this side. Now I'm going to flip it around and then repeat and do the exact same thing on the other side here. So we have 2 hats on each side. So the last hat we're going to make a little bit differently. Again, I'm going to grab my tweezers nose pliers and place them where the wires cross over. So place your pliers in that place, but now instead of bending this length upwards like we did the other times, I'm going to bend it downwards and kind of away from the hats. So something a bit like that. And then of course we need to do the same with the other side. So grab onto that and then bend that downwards as well. So we still end up with the 2 wires sitting next to each other, but now they're just facing downwards instead of being bent upwards. And then I'm going to grab the weaving wire here, the same one that we've been using working our way down. And I also just want to fasten these 2 ends together. So just bring it through and just wrap the wire around both of them just a few times. And then what I also want to do is take this opportunity, because we are now right basically on top of the ring band. I also want to attach this part to the ring band just to make it extra secure and sturdy. So I've just wrapped around that point. I'm just going to bring it through the ring band then, and then also just basically catch that, and then I want to just catch back up at the hats again. So go through on this side here and then just pull it nice and tight. And what you'll find as well is you should be able to do is pull so tight or use pliers to push this wire that we just brought around, push it into the weave itself. So it shouldn't be laying on top, but it should kind of be able to blend in with the weave that's in the ring band. And I just want to go through again just to wrap around this wire here a few times, and then just bringing it through to the other side again just to make sure it's wrapped securely. So it's not just once or twice, it's kind of fastened to the ring band. But I'm going to also go back to the other side and do the same thing there. So just go through the hat on that side and again pull that tight, and make sure to pull it so tight that it blends in with the ring band. And if it doesn't kind of do it by pulling, you can push it into the ring band. And again, just go through here a few times just for that extra security. And then you can go in and cut off this weaving wire now, but I personally like to leave them till the end and then do them all then. So I'm just going to put it out of the way and then grab my tweezers nose pliers again. And now these wires here that are sticking straight out that we just attached, I want to get as far in as I can, and we then now need to start bending them upwards. So get all the way right into where the weave ends that we did, all them wraps, and we want to bend it upwards there. And now also basically separate them. So now instead of making the hat from the cleft and then making each side, now we're going to do it from the bottom point and then finish in the cleft. So just separate the wires out and then just make that bend nice and tight. And then again, I'm just going to grab my 6-step bell making pliers to help shape the curves on the hat. So in this case here, I'm using the smallest step now and just grabbing one at a time. I'm then going to now bring the wires in towards each other, basically create that curved part, and just judge how it looks, and can roll it down and then make sure that the wire comes straight down in the middle. And of course the same on the other side. So then I want to go in and cut off the excess here to basically get rid of the wires and also finish off this hat. So I'm going to go in with my flush cutters and I just want to cut it so I have a decent length here left on the hat, because just cut them off. Again, rather cut too little than too much, because you can always go in and trim off a bit more, whereas obviously you can't add. So as you can see, there's still a bit of a length there and it's sticking out. So what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to push them in to sit basically inside of the hat, you could say. So push them in like that, and then you just want to make sure that the very end of the wire, so basically if you imagine this is the wire, the very end ends up kind of being tucked into the middle of the hat. So just push them in where they are not sticking out at all, and they're basically tucked out of the way, but we then still end up with that hat shape. And this is also then the smallest hat out of the 3. So that's how you finish off the last one. And of course we still just got to flip it around and do the same thing, make that last hat on this side as well. Now before we then go in and add the cabochon, I just want to finish off all these weaving wires now. So just do one at a time, go and cut off the excess where it's coming out from, and then just grab the tweezers nose pliers and and just make sure to flatten that down and repeat with the rest of them. And then finally we got to add the cabochon. So the first thing I just like to do is go to each of the prongs and then grab onto the very tip, and then just there at the very tip bend that inwards ever so slightly and go around. Do that with all of them. Then I just like to place my cabochon in the setting so I can judge properly where I need to place my pliers in order to bend the prongs here. So as you can see, you can also have a look from the side. That'll kind of tell you where the prongs need to be bent to come over the top of the cabochon. So just keep hold of that in there, and then just start with one, and then you can always obviously remove the cabochon as we're bending it, and then start to bend it in over the cabochon, which obviously will be once it's in place. And you can always then add the cabochon back in just to kind of check how it's going to be, or if you need to bend it a bit further. So this can be bent a bit further, but I also like to go to the opposite prong and then bend that one in over as well. So we're going to start to gradually hopefully get a better grip on the cabochon. So I've bent the two opposite now. Then I'm going to grab the other two, starting with one, bend that in over, and of course just that last one as well, like that. And then we can just have a little look, kind of get the cabochon in there and see how it sits and how tight it is. So it's not too far off, but I do just need to adjust a little bit more. I can tell this one up here is not quite as tight around the top of the cabochon as the other ones. So you can remove the cabochon again, or you can also work with it in place if you feel comfortable with that. Just tighten it up a bit, and then let's try and add it again. Just kind of slip it in there so it slots into place. And then in order to tighten it up while it's in place, you can go in with your pliers and obviously do this gently, and then start to push the individual prong further and tighter in over the stone. Now obviously be careful so we don't break the stone, but that is then how you'll tighten up the cabochon with the prongs. Now if you find that once you've added your cabochon in place you can't get it quite tight enough to the point where it won't move around, what you can do as a tip is just grab a little bit of glue. I personally recommend the E6000, it works well for metal, and just add a tiny little bit on a toothpick. It doesn't have to be a lot at all, and just add a bit of glue on a few key places. So on the underside of the cabochon, but where say the cabochon meets up with some wire, and just add a tiny bit of glue. It does not have to be a lot at all, almost to the point where you can't see it, and also it will dry clear so you won't really notice it once it's dried. So you can always do that if you feel the need. So that is how you make this heartbeat prong set cabochon ring, and like I said, you can easily use different shapes of cabochons. So if you don't want to miss any future updates from me, you can sign up to my newsletter in the description box below the video. Otherwise, I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching it, and I'll see you in the next one.